All right. All right. Very good. Well, thank you all for anyone that's joined us this evening. So I'm Bob Collum, the city manager here. I'm joined by Angie O'Brien, Chief Strategy Officer with the city. And of course, this is the second virtual town hall meeting regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funding, or as we refer to it as the Star City Strong initiative as we go forward. Second of the series. This is one of many ways, and we'll talk about that at the end, of folks to be able to join in suggesting ideas in how the city can best use the funds that it's receiving. Unfortunately, this evening we did not get anyone to join us in the webinar in this concept. There may be folks joining us certainly on Facebook Live, and of course this will be provided as a recording, so there is the opportunity for others to be able to view the recording. So to that end, I am going to go ahead and go through kind of the introductory remarks and comments that we had used in the previous town hall, and that we would certainly use if we had participants this evening as well, so that folks that do view it have either viewing it online or who will view it later have the opportunity. So let me first explain a little bit of what we're doing and why we're doing it and how folks can continue to be involved in this process. The city has consistently received, has been the beneficiary of federal and state support in helping both respond to COVID as well as recover from its impacts. And so this effort is aligned with that piece of it. Before I get into that, let me sort of set the stage and remind folks of the level of support that the federal government through congressional action has provided throughout the pandemic, and that'll lead us up to this moment that then I'll pick up from there. Back in March of last year, so March of 2020, the Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Act was approved, and that provided $8.3 billion for the development of vaccines, therapeutics, diagnostics, medical supplies, and so on. That was followed by the Families First Coronavirus Response Act in April, and that was $192 billion. And that expanded family leave, sick leave, provided unemployment benefits, and so on. That was followed in March of 2020 by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, better known as the CARES Act. And that was really the first time we got directly as a city involved. That was $2.2 trillion that was provided to continue unemployment benefits, relief for higher education students, support for hospitals, eviction moratoriums, utility connections, those types of things. We got involved because there was a certain amount of money provided to the states, and in Virginia, much of that money was actually then forwarded down to localities to help get the money out into the community. So we actually received somewhere around $17 million in two different allotments for those funds. And we provided those funds out into the community in direct aid to grants for small businesses, as well as direct support of clinics, for example, and helping them actually get things done. Arts groups received funding. There was a whole collection of funding, certainly individuals and households receiving benefit for assistance as was necessary. So that was really our first involvement. And we used a process very similar to that we're using now that I'll talk about a little bit further. And then in April of 2020, there was the Paycheck Protection Program and Healthcare Enhancement Act. That is, of course, what provided the federal program, or the federal level provided payroll protection efforts throughout small businesses throughout the country. Then in December 21 of 2020, the Consolidated Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. This was really the stimulus fund. So these were the first dollars that went directly to households, and also included further business protections in the area of paycheck protection and some others as well. And then in March of this year was the American Rescue Plan Act, or I may refer to it as ARPA through this meeting. And that was $1.9 trillion, which continued many of the same programs that I just mentioned, but included one significant addition, which was all of the other programs allowed the localities to help get money out to the community, but actually allowed very few opportunities for the locality to actually receive funds directly to use it for expenses that they were incurring. The ARPA Act, or the American Rescue Plan Act, was the first time that actually allowed localities to account for lost revenues as a result of the COVID impacts and receive funds for that purpose. I'll talk a little bit about that because we're actually not using the dollars in that fashion, but I wanted to note that piece of it. We are receiving over the next 2 years as a part of this act, $64.5 million, and that is a direct funding from the federal government to us. That is not going routed through the state. That actually, again, comes directly to us in the locality. In addition, there are a whole host of other programs that the American Rescue Plan Act funded. That includes an additional $51 million that's being sent directly to Roanoke City Public Schools. There are also other funds that are going to other kinds of programs and activities, including funding for Federal Transit Authority, funding to airports, and many, many other programs that are a part of that effort. The $64.5 million is the part that obviously affects us the most directly. And similar to what we did in the CARES Act, the council, before they decide how they want to allocate these dollars out in the community, wants to engage with the community. That is, in the case of the CARES Act, that involved a number of conversations with the community, focus group meetings, surveys, and ultimately the formation of an advisory panel. In a very similar fashion, we're doing that this time. So we have already completed focus groups with more than 100 individuals covering 9 different topic areas. There have been dozens of stakeholder interviews conducted. And actually this past Monday on the 19th, the council appointed 36 members to an advisory panel, which will convene next week. The purpose of the advisory panel is over the course of a month, so over the course basically of August, they will get together, they will hear what the regulations are around those dollars, what the needs are that are in the community. They will hear guidance that has already been put forward by the state as well as federal government, as well as other agencies and organizations. And they will see the results from the focus group meetings and the others. And then from there, they really will, among themselves, as facilitated through the meetings, they will talk about where the priorities, in their opinion, ought to be. And all of that will culminate in a set of recommendations that will go to the council in September. And then the council will consider those recommendations along with other information to arrive at how they will allocate those $64.5 million over the next couple of years. I mentioned earlier that the Rescue Act allows for the cities, municipalities all across the country to account for lost revenue. So obviously there were impacts to small businesses, impacts to households, impacts to economic activity that resulted obviously in less tax revenue being received by the localities. The Rescue Act provides a formula by which you can calculate what that lost revenue is. We've done that, and we can account for, in the first year alone, at least $28 million worth of lost revenue. Under the Act, we could simply claim that lost revenue, put it into our general fund, and spend it however the council chose to do so. That is not what we're doing. We balanced the FY22 budget based off of projected revenues independent of any funding that we might receive from the federal government. And that allows us to use this $64.5 million, including the $28 million of lost revenue, for the purposes of advancing the recovery efforts in the community. So we will not be using it in effect to balance the budget. We'll be using it to fund efforts and programs in the community. And so that is a significant step in this program and of importance. A lot of communities have already started identifying how they'll choose to use these funds. And it runs really everything, including infrastructure investments and things like broadband. You can use it for water and wastewater, stormwater, as well as social service programs, education programs, job training programs. There's a whole host of eligible kinds of efforts that other communities have begun identifying what they will use those funds for as they go forward. There's quite a bit of latitude that the federal government has provided in how these funds are used, as long as they are, again, in response to impacts coming from COVID. And so, again, this advisory panel will play a pretty significant role in what we do. So that's how the advisory panel will be involved. How can folks that are just joining in either on Facebook or who might see this recording, how can you get involved? So as I mentioned, obviously, we've conducted the focus group meetings and the stakeholder interviews. So those were 2 ways that folks could get involved. We've had these 2 virtual town hall meetings and may have more out in the future. So that's another way. We will, over the next couple of weeks, we will be pushing out a survey through a variety of different mediums that will allow folks also to answer a series of questions that will help inform the advisory panel as they do their work. All of the meetings of the advisory panel will be conducted in person and will be open to the public. So folks are certainly welcome to attend those meetings. They're not public hearings, but you certainly can be present in those. There may indeed be some public hearings as the recommendations go to council. So that would be another way in which folks can provide their thoughts and input on what this is. And also you can always email us or call us in the city manager's office. Certainly try to reach myself or Angie, and we'll be happy to take any thoughts or ideas that you have for how these dollars would be most effectively spent in our community to really be able to transform our recovery efforts and make us much more resilient for future types of shocks like this as we go forward. So there's many ways, and we'll continue to add those ways as we go forward. All of the information that we are sharing with the advisory panel or collecting will be available on our website. So all of the notes from their meetings, the agendas from their meetings, these recordings, as well as any other reports that are provided, will all be up on the website. So folks have the opportunity to view everything that the advisory panel will see, and that ultimately will be used for the recommendation from the council as well. So those are some of the ways in which individuals can continue to be involved in this process. Obviously, you can also reach out to your individual council members if you have any ideas that you would like to share with them as we go through this process as well. Would certainly encourage everyone to continue to remain engaged with this so that you know what programs are being talked about and how to get further involved as we go along through the process. Again, I expect the advisory panel to conclude their work at the end of August, and then probably in late September is when we would present the recommendations to the council. But again, we'll have more public information about specifics on what those recommendations are and exactly when they will be considered by the council as we go forward. So that was kind of the introductory remarks that I had shared at the town hall meeting yesterday that I wanted to share with this group, just to give everybody an overview of kind of what these dollars are, how much they are, what they can be used for, and how you can be involved in the process. So for this evening, that's what we wanted to cover. Again, encourage you to reach out and let us know your ideas and thoughts about the best way to use these dollars as we move forward. If folks have joined us on Facebook Live, I thank you for joining us and appreciate your attention to this, and look forward to the conversations we're going to have with the advisory panel and the rest of the community as we try to figure out the best way to spend these dollars to have the most impact, most positive impact in our community. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for viewing us on the recording, and look forward to the conversation.